It took Christine Winters, supervisor of the VIP area at Skyward Airlines, just 3 seconds to decide that Marcus Johnson didn't belong in the first-class lounge. His impeccable suit, Swiss watch, and composed demeanor weren't enough. All she saw was the color of his skin, and that was enough. "Security," she whispered, disguising her prejudice with a professional smile. What Christine didn't know was that this man had built a technology empire with his own hands, an empire capable of bringing down entire corporations. As 2 agents approached to escort him, the passengers pretended not to see, all except Tyler Anderson, a student who immediately recognized the face of the man who had transformed the United States into a digital city. Without changing his tone of voice, Marcus picked up his cell phone and made a single call. "Corvo Protocol. Activate observation mode." Within seconds, the airport's camera system began recording everything. The embarrassment, the injustice, the knowing expressions. That gesture, which seemed like just another episode of discrimination, would become the beginning of a silent war, a war against the arrogance, racism, and false courtesy of a country accustomed to bowing to prejudice. They thought they were removing an inconvenient passenger. In truth, they were provoking the man who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, the instant when power, intelligence, and dignity would finally speak louder than any look of contempt. Before we continue, tell us which city or country you are watching from, and if you enjoy stories where the truth prevails with elegance and force, subscribe, because the next special episode will change what you think about justice. The sleek black Skyward executive sedan pulled up in front of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport almost silently. The driver, Gerald, quickly jumped out to open the rear door. Inside, Marcus Johnson adjusted the platinum cufflinks, a gift he gave himself when he closed his first billion-dollar deal. "Do you need help with your luggage, Mr. Marcus?" Gerald asked, his posture impeccable. "Just the handbag, Gerald. I've been traveling light lately." He walked up the sidewalk with the elegance and confidence of someone who knew exactly his own worth. At 42, the founder of Synapse Technologies, an American artificial intelligence empire, carried in his gaze the serenity of someone who had won battles the world had never seen. "Very well, sir. Would you like me to send someone to pick you up when you return? I'll send the details as soon as I land in Miami, and with your luggage, take the rest of the day off. That's an order." The driver smiled, visibly moved. As he walked through the glass doors of the terminal, Marcus felt the air change, that subtle vibration that always accompanied him when entering places that historically had not been designed for men like him. Discreet glances, veiled whispers, security guards straightening their posture. A woman gripped her purse tighter. Marcus noticed everything, but maintained a serene expression. This was already part of the white noise of his life, irritating, predictable, but harmless to someone who had learned that reacting is empowering. The first-class line was empty. Marcus approached the counter, where 2 employees were chatting. The youngest, Ashley Parker, smiled immediately, but the other woman, Christine Winters, stopped mid-sentence and gave her a calculated, cold, up-and-down look. "Good morning," said Marcus, sliding his driver's license and platinum card across the counter. "Skyward Airlines flight to Miami, departing at 11:30 a.m., he added politely. Christine picked up the documents with a forced smile. "And how are you today, sir?" he asked, pausing slightly on the "sir," as if swallowing his respect. "Well, thank you," he replied firmly. Christine typed with excessive force. "Business or leisure, sir?" "Business." "I figured," she murmured, glancing at his ID and then at him, assessing whether the photo matched. She leaned discreetly toward Ashley and whispered something. Marcus caught enough. "It must be that guy from the startup. He got lucky and became rich." He simply smiled inwardly. Luck doesn't build an empire. Hard work and vision do. "Your boarding pass, Mr. Marcus," said Christine, reluctantly handing over the document. "First-class passengers proceed to the VIP lounge. Boarding begins at 10:45 a.m. I thank." As he walked away, Marcus felt her eyes burning into his back. The security inspection went without incident, although, as always, he was randomly selected for an additional search. 20 minutes later, he approached the entrance to the Skyward Premier Lounge. A young attendant, Nathan Hayes, smiled kindly. "Good morning, sir. May I see your boarding pass and identification?" Marcus was already handing out the papers when Christine Winters appeared behind the podium, hurried, with the look of someone carrying a decision already made. "Leave it to me, Nathan," she said, gesturing towards the boy. He picked up his boarding pass and document, turning them over and over as if searching for a flaw. "Is there a problem?" Marcus asked calmly. "I'm just doing my duty, sir," she replied, spitting out the "sir" like venom. "These passages are quite unusual." "Unusual?" "Yes, they are very expensive. We need to ensure that each passenger is in their proper seat." Silence filled the lounge. Several glances turned. Marcus remained calm. He knew this wasn't just another day of travel. It was another test of endurance, and as always, he was prepared to overcome it. "I guarantee that my ticket is valid," said Marcus Johnson, his voice calm but firm. Christine Winters examined her boarding pass and frowned at the computer screen. "This ticket, it probably belongs to someone else." She looked up, assessing Marcus from head to toe. "Did you find this card, or did someone buy it for you? An employer, perhaps?" The insinuation hung in the air like a blade. A few meters away, a white man in a polo shirt let out a mocking laugh. "Maybe he's lost. Is the bus that way, friend?" he said, pointing to the main terminal. Christine didn't correct him. On the contrary, she seemed encouraged by the comment. "I'll need an additional verification." Marcus maintained a steady gaze. Calmly, he pulled a black metal Centurion card from his wallet, an exclusive card granted to less than 1% of the country's wealthiest clients. "Does this help verify my identity?" he asked, with the composure of someone used to being underestimated. Christine's eyes widened for a second, but she quickly recovered. "Anyone can have that." He turned, picking up the phone. "I'm going to call security." Marcus didn't protest. He'd been through situations like this so many times that he'd mastered the art of remaining still. He knew that for many, a single wrong tone of voice was enough to confirm the stereotype they so desperately wanted to see. He simply stepped aside and waited with impeccable posture and an unwavering expression. A few minutes later, Captain Vincent Morrison appeared, head of security at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. A tall man with broad shoulders, an analytical gaze, and the typical calm of someone who once commanded troops. "What's the problem here?" he asked, his voice deep and controlled. "This gentleman," said Christine with irony in the word, "is trying to access the first-class lounge with possibly fraudulent documentation." Morrison turned to Marcus. "Sir, may I see your ID and boarding pass?" Marcus handed them over without a word. The captain examined them closely, then looked up. "Mrs. Winters, everything is in order. Mr. Johnson's documentation is legitimate." Christine's face contorted. "But he seemed suspicious. The system flagged it." "The system didn't signal anything," the captain interrupted firmly. "There are no alerts for this passenger." Christine kept her chin up. "Even so, I think he should be removed from the VIP area, just in case. These days, you never know." The silence weighed heavily. Morrison hesitated for a moment, torn between protocol and common sense. "Sir, I apologize, but would you mind accompanying me to the security room while we sort this out?" "Of course," Marcus replied without hesitation. As they walked, Marcus noticed the watchful gaze of Tyler Anderson, a young black intern at Skyward Airlines, observing the scene with indignation. His name tag trembled in his hands as he frantically typed something on his cell phone. In the hallway, Marcus spoke softly with surgical calm. "This is Johnson. Raven Protocol. Full activation. Initiate observation mode." He put his cell phone away just as Captain Morrison opened the door to the security room. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry. I know who you are. This shouldn't be happening." "I understand, Captain. He's just following orders." Morrison's gaze softened. Marcus knew this was just another chapter in a story he had been facing his entire life. But unlike previous times, this time there would be consequences. Meanwhile, in Skyward's IT department, Tyler Anderson was frantically sending messages to a friend. "Dude, they messed with Marcus Johnson. Yeah, that Marcus Johnson. The guy who created half the systems that make this airport work." On the other side of the screen, IT analyst Brandon Cole almost dropped his coffee. "Are you kidding me? The founder of Synapse Technologies?" "Completely serious," Tyler replied, hiding behind a column so as not to be seen. Christine Winters and security escorted him as if he were a criminal. Brandon was silent for a second before saying, "My God, they really messed with the wrong man." The artificial intelligence systems created by Marcus Johnson now control half of the infrastructure at major airports in the United States and North America. Their dynamic security protocols are even used by the Department of Defense in high-level operations. "For God's sake, I know exactly who he is," exclaimed Tyler Anderson indignantly. "My MIT graduation project was based on his early algorithms. The guy's a legend, man, and they treated him like he was a thief." As Tyler and Brandon Cole processed what they had witnessed, their words echoed a story that, decades earlier, had begun very differently. The story of a boy who came from nothing but was born with a rare gift. 28 years earlier, 8 years old, a worn notebook in her hands, and the silence of a late afternoon at Hope Haven, a simple shelter on the outskirts of Detroit. There, Marcus scribbled entire pages with numbers and diagrams that few adults could understand. Beside him, social worker Helen Crawford watched the boy, his expression focused and his heart too hardened for his age. "Your aunt isn't coming today, Marcus," she said softly. "I'm sorry." Marcus simply nodded, unfazed. He'd heard this before. "Okay," he replied. "I need to finish this here." Helen leaned forward, curious. "What are you doing?" "It's a system," the boy explained with impressive seriousness. "It predicts patterns. If we can predict them, we can prepare for what comes next." Helen's gaze filled with sadness and wonder. Of course, this boy, who had lost his parents in an accident so young, was trying to control the unpredictable. "You're a special boy, Marcus. One day the world will know that," she murmured. By the age of 14, Marcus had already been through 4 foster homes. He carried on his shoulders the weight of being the only black boy in schools where disdainful glances were more common than compliments. He spoke little, observed much. He learned early on that silence was a form of defense. At Washington High School, Teacher Mitchell noticed something different about him. "You're wasting your time here," he said after a class. Marcus shrugged. "What challenge do I have to do, Professor?" He took a crumpled notebook out of his backpack and opened it. Lines and more lines of code, formulas and complex graphs. The professor glanced over and stopped, surprised. "This is a master's thesis. What are you building?" "It's a model to predict the behavior of markets and harvests," he replied shyly. "It's just a hobby." The professor smiled, disbelieving. "A hobby? Marcus, that's brilliant. Do you realize what you've created?" For the first time in a long time, the boy allowed himself a small smile. At 17, Marcus was working 3 jobs. working in a cafeteria before class, in the library at night, and washing dishes on weekends. Every penny was invested in used computer parts, which he assembled himself in his new foster home's bedroom. One early morning, Mr. Raymond, his adoptive father, found him awake at 3 o'clock. "You're going to burn out, kid." "I'm fine," Marcus replied, without taking his eyes off the screen. "What is so important that it can't wait until tomorrow?" Marcus hesitated. "It's the app I'm creating. Applications for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology close next week. If I finish this, I might get the scholarship. What does the app do? It analyzes climate and agricultural data to predict food shortages in advance. It can help NGOs prepare." Mr. Raymond was silent for a moment, then smiled proudly. "You're unbelievable, boy. Even the brightest minds need sleep. Go get some rest." This time Marcus obeyed. He slept for 3 hours before the morning shift. That afternoon, upon returning home, Mr. Raymond was waiting for him with an envelope. "Mail for you." Marcus opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a letter, "Full scholarship at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology." That weekend, the adoptive parents improvised a small celebration. Marcus's first party ever. Everyone toasted as if it were the beginning of a perfect story, but it wasn't, because the world wasn't ready for a man like him yet. 2 years later, 19-year-old Marcus Johnson sat in a cold, impersonal conference room in Manhattan's financial district. Before him, 3 white men in expensive suits watched him with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Your algorithm is impressive, Mr. Johnson," said Richard Caldwell, the grey-haired veteran investor who occupied the center of the table. "It still needs some adjustments, of course, but we see potential." Marcus maintained his composure. He had spent 2 years refining his predictive system for food scarcity, a project that could save lives in vulnerable regions. "Thank you, sir," he replied calmly but attentively. "We are willing to offer $250,000 for the intellectual property," said Lawrence Foster, while twirling his pen over the business card bearing the company logo. Marcus frowned. "The projected value is in the millions." Caldwell laughed, a paternalistic laugh that filled the room with veiled contempt. "Young man, that's very optimistic. Look, we're taking all the risk here. You're just a student with an unproven concept." "It's a concept I developed and tested myself," Marcus retorted. "It works. The World Food Program has already shown interest." "What passion," Caldwell said condescendingly. "But the business world doesn't work that way. We have the connections, the structure." Marcus stared at him, finally understanding the game. "You want to remove the humanitarian purpose from the project and sell it to speculative funds, don't you?" he said, his voice now firm. "That's not why I created it." The third man, Douglas Bennett, sighed. "Mr. Johnson, let's be practical. You're a freshman with no connections, no inheritance, no influential surname. This is a generous offer." Marcus stood up, gathering the project papers. "Thank you for your time." "Don't be a fool," Caldwell warned. "If you refuse, we'll develop something similar internally. You won't see a penny." Marcus took a deep breath. "I'd rather take a risk than sell my conscience." And he left, carrying only the prototype in his hands. 6 months later, Caldwell's company launched an identical system, reverse-engineered. They made millions. Marcus received nothing, no credit, no mention. It was the first betrayal, but it wouldn't be the last. And it was also the beginning of a lesson that would mark his soul. In the business world, power was not a luxury, it was survival. Meanwhile, at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, Tyler Anderson continued exchanging frantic messages with Brandon Cole. The news had already spread. Marcus Johnson was being held in the Skyward Airlines security room. Captain Vincent Morrison repeated the procedures, trying to hide his embarrassment. "I apologize for the inconvenience, Mr. Johnson. It seems there has been a misunderstanding." "Is that really so?" Marcus asked, his voice calm but heavy with emotion. Morrison's eyes met his for a moment before looking away. "Sir, a misunderstanding implies error. This seemed quite intentional to me." The captain hesitated. After 20 years between the Air Force and airport security, he knew that pattern well. Random selections that were never random. Well-dressed black men on first-class flights, always checked as a precaution. "I can't comment on that, sir." "No need," Marcus replied. "Your silence has already said enough." Morrison cleared his throat, trying to maintain formality. "You are free to go. I will personally escort you back to the lounge." "That's not necessary. My boarding call will be made soon." As he left the room, Marcus's cell phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "Mr. Johnson, this is Tyler Anderson, an intern at Skyward. What happened was wrong. Many of us admire you very much." Marcus paused, thought, and replied, "Stay alert. The truth always reveals itself to patience." Outside the terminal, a black SUV with tinted windows was discreetly parked. Inside, Colonel Sarah Hayes, head of global security at Synapse Technologies, watched every movement at the airport with an analytical eye. The phone vibrated. "Hayes, it's me," Marcus said. "Raven protocol active." "Understood. Resources in place. I'm on my way to base." "The information about Skyward Airlines is concerning," she continued. "Strong links to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg. The CEO, William Patterson, maintains close ties with half of the Congressional Transportation Committee." Marcus listened silently as she opened the encrypted tablet. "Their vulnerabilities are numerous. Outdated cybersecurity systems, a toxic corporate culture, and internal security based on appearances, not merit." Marcus took a deep breath. "So we'll start there." And he hung up. The war that others thought was invisible had just begun. 18 harassment settlements in the last 5 years, all hushed up with money and influence, reported Colonel Sarah Hayes, scrolling through files on her encrypted tablet. And Skyward Airlines' flight safety record remains clean only thanks to an aggressive policy of suppressing judicial proceedings. Marcus Johnson was silent for a few seconds. When he spoke, his voice was calm but sharp. "Perfect. They're rotten on the inside." Sarah looked up. "What's the plan, Marcus?" she asked, dropping the formality. "That's how it was when the two of them strategized, just like when she was in charge of CIA operations." Marcus stared out the window, observing the reflection of his own face. "They humiliated me because they thought I was powerless, because they saw my skin color and assumed inferiority." The pause was brief, but intense. "It's not about revenge, Sarah. It's about accountability." He took a deep breath. "These systems only continue to exist because no one with enough power decides to confront them. It's time to change that." Sarah gave a grim smile. "And you have more power than all of them combined." Marcus simply confirmed with a nod. "Prepare for a full-blown showdown. I want all the skeletons in Skyward's closet on display. Every lie, every name. And as for Christine Winters," he paused briefly, "she's chosen her side too." Sarah simply nodded. "Understood." Meanwhile, at Skyward Airlines' luxurious headquarters in Manhattan, William Patterson sipped an 18-year-old bourbon, watching the New York sunset reflected in the mirrored windows. "Good news, Charles," he said to the Chief Financial Officer, Charles Griffin. "Senator Robert Marshall has indefinitely postponed the new aviation safety regulations." Charles raised his eyebrows. "How much does this save us? About 30 million in improvements?" "At least," William confirmed, swirling the crystal glass. "Marshall understands how the game is played." The intercom flashed on the table. "Mr. Patterson, there's a situation at O'Hare Airport. The communications staff has asked that you be informed." William sighed, annoyed. "What is it now?" A passenger named Marcus Johnson was denied access to the first-class lounge, even though he had the correct documentation. The case is going viral on social media. William frowned. Marcus Johnson, why does that name sound familiar? He is the founder and CEO of Synapse Technologies, sir. Ah, yes, the tech guy. Black, isn't he? Yes, sir. William made a dismissive gesture, even though no one could see it. Standard response. Skyward is committed to diversity and inclusion. This isolated incident does not reflect our values. Sir, I think this case might be more serious. Mr. Johnson is extremely influential. Just blame the employee and drop the subject. We've been through this before. No one will remember tomorrow. Yes, sir, replied the press officer hesitantly. As he hung up, William grumbled to Charles, "See, everyone's so sensitive these days. A simple misunderstanding becomes headline news." Charles hesitated. But isn't he the one who developed the AI system that controls air traffic at airports? So what? William retorted, shrugging. These tech companies are all the same. All talk, no action. Back at O'Hare in the staff break room, Ashley Parker approached Christine Winters. "What happened today was wrong, Christine," he said in a low voice. "Wrong? I followed protocol," Christine replied defensively. "That man seemed suspicious." "Suspicious why?" Ashley retorted. "Because he was black and well-dressed?" Christine's face hardened. Men like that love to play the victim. They always want special treatment. "He didn't want special treatment," Ashley insisted. "He just wanted the same respect any other passenger would receive." Christine snorted. "You're too young to understand. I've been working in this field for 20 years. "Well, that's the problem," Ashley replied firmly. 20 years of seeing problems where there aren't any." She turned around, but before leaving she added, "You know who he is, don't you? The name means nothing to me." "I should say so," Ashley said, looking her in the eyes. "Because I guarantee your bosses know very well what Marcus Johnson means." A flicker of doubt crossed Christine's face. While Marcus's flight was being prepared for boarding, a new message arrived on his cell phone. "Phase 1 complete. At your command. S. Hayes." Marcus looked out the lounge window at the immense Skyward Airlines Boeing, gleaming in the morning sun. He typed only one word. "Begin." Outside, satellites, servers and cameras began to wake up, silently. And for the first time in decades, power changed hands. As soon as Marcus Johnson's flight landed in Miami, his cell phone began vibrating incessantly. The incident at O'Hare had already taken over the internet. Videos recorded by passengers showed the moment he was prevented from entering the first-class lounge by supervisor Christine Winters and then escorted away by security guards. One of the most shared posts had the caption, "This is how they treat a black man at one of the country's busiest airports." Another image showed two pictures side by side. On the left, Christine smiling in her corporate badge. On the right, the video of her coldly staring at Marcus. When he got into the car that was waiting for him, the main television stations had already interrupted their programming. "Breaking news," announced the CNN anchor. Entrepreneur and artificial intelligence pioneer Marcus Johnson was denied access to the Skyward Airlines VIP lounge, despite possessing valid documentation. The case raises serious allegations of racial discrimination. Marcus watched the broadcast in silence, his face motionless as the driver sped through the heavy traffic. His phone rang. "Sarah Hayes," said the voice on the other end of the line. "The news is already all over the networks. The reaction is divided but tends to be in your favor. The Skyward crisis team is in a panic, and our digital insertions successfully completed. We are monitoring everything." Marcus simply replied, "Excellent. Keep watching." Hours later, the official statement from Skyward Airlines was published on all news portals. Skyward reinforces its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The incident involving Mr. Marcus Johnson was an isolated case resulting from the misconduct of an employee who failed to follow internal protocols. We are conducting a thorough investigation and apologize to Mr. Johnson and all of our customers. High atop the mirrored building that houses Skyward's headquarters in Manhattan, CEO William Patterson read the statement with boredom before setting his tablet down on the table. "Okay, problem solved," he told the crisis team gathered before him. "Now can we get back to serious business?" Jennifer Morrison, the communications director, exchanged an apprehensive glance with Charles Griffin, the finance director. "Sir, this won't be enough. The company's image is in ruins, and Mr. Johnson is one of the most influential people in the technology sector." William snorted. "Jennifer, it's just another social media storm. Blame the employee, promise to improve, and move on. The public will forget in 2 days. I think we should contact him personally, perhaps have a meeting, make a formal request," she insisted. "And why?" William interrupted, raising his voice. "The man boarded, didn't he? There's always someone who shouts discrimination. The legal department will sort it out." Jennifer and Charles exchanged glances. "Even so," Charles began, but the CEO was already standing up. "Meeting adjourned. I have a charity dinner. Just keep it cheap and out of the headlines." When the executives left, Jennifer stood still for a moment. "Charles, this looks different." "I know," he replied, worried. "And knowing Marcus Johnson, this story isn't going to end like this." His cell phone vibrated. It was a call from airport security. He turned pale. Meanwhile, in the O'Hare staff cafeteria, Christine Winters walked confidently among her colleagues. "I was just doing my job," she said, loud enough to be heard. "I've been with the company for 20 years, and I know how to recognize suspicious behavior." Ashley Parker, sitting nearby, crossed her arms. "That's not what happened, Christine. You intercepted him on purpose." The group fell silent. Christine's smile faded. "Be careful what you say, young lady. False accusations can harm your career." Ashley kept her gaze steady. What can harm someone's career is confusing skin color with suspicion. Before the confrontation could continue, the supervisor appeared at the door. "Christine, I need to talk to you. Now." The murmuring among the employees spread like wildfire. The story no longer belonged to anyone there. It had escaped the airport walls and taken over the entire country. And on the other side of town, Marcus Johnson was looking at his cell phone, where a message from Sarah Hayes was flashing. "Phase 2 is ready. At your command." He typed a single word. "Move forward." From that moment on, the truth would no longer be merely revealed. It would be transmitted. Christine Winters' confident expression vanished the instant the supervisor appeared in the doorway. "Christine, we need to talk, now," said Kevin Reynolds, in a tone that left no room for rebuttal. As I followed him silently through the administrative corridors of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, my cell phone vibrated. A notification from Skyward Airlines HR was flashing on the screen. "All employee social media accounts are under review in accordance with the new internal policy. Please refrain from publicly commenting on recent events involving the company." Christine took a deep breath, but the shiver that ran down her spine said it all. The situation was spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, travelers across the country began experiencing mysterious problems with the Skyward system. Reservations would disappear from the database, only to reappear hours later. First-class passengers were being downgraded to economy class for no apparent reason. Valid credit cards were being declined, and in some cases charged 2 or 3 times for the same transaction. At the company's technology headquarters in Boston, chaos reigned. "It's as if the system is sabotaging itself," said the chief IT engineer, frowning at the screens. "We fix one bug and 3 new ones appear." "I've never seen anything like it." The infrastructure director approached, looking distressed. "Could this be a hacker attack?" "Perhaps, but the strange thing is that there's no entry point. All the protocols are intact, and worse, the failures aren't random. Like this? They are targeting the most profitable routes and the most important customers. It's too specific. This is no coincidence." Hundreds of miles away, in his suite at the Oceanfront Grand Hotel in Miami, Marcus Johnson watched the real-time flow of data on a set of monitors. Lines of code danced like electrical waves. On the main screen, an image of Colonel Sarah Hayes appeared, speaking through an encrypted channel. "Operation Mirror is active," she confirmed. "We've located vulnerabilities in Skyward's internal communications. We are gathering information on William Patterson and the Executive Circle," she continued. "The digital insertions are operating discreetly, disguised as system failures. Financial impact already detectable in the last 2 hours." Marcus nodded, his voice low and controlled. "Perfect. Go ahead." "And what about our allies within the company?" "Tyler Anderson has been instrumental. He provided access to internal channels and identified employees who were unhappy with management." "Excellent," Marcus replied. "And what about Christine Winters?" Sarah sighed as she read the report. "She has a collection of old passenger complaints, all of which have been filed away. The pattern is clear: hostility towards non-white passengers, especially in the high-end lounges. HR has a dossier, but has never taken action." Marcus rested his elbows on the table. "And what about Captain Vincent Morrison?" "A decent man, according to our sources. Ethical, but trapped in a system that limits him. Contact him, discreetly. I want to know the extent of his loyalty." At the airport, Tyler Anderson was working quietly when his cell phone vibrated. It was Brandon Cole from the IT team in Boston. "Something is wrong. The system seems to have gone haywire. The boss is panicking. Does it have to do with what happened yesterday?" Tyler looked around, making sure no one was watching, and replied, "Maybe. Stay tuned. Keep me informed." A few terminals away, Captain Vincent Morrison was reviewing the previous day's camera footage. He repeatedly reenacted the scene between Marcus and Christine. Her disdain, the pointless escalation. Each second reinforced something he already knew, but had never said aloud. The phone rang. "Morrison." A firm, serene female voice replied, "Captain, this is Sarah Hayes, head of global security at Synapse Technologies." "How did you get this number?" he asked suspiciously. "What matters is not the number, but the reason. We have a mutual acquaintance, Marcus Johnson." Vincent looked around, making sure the room was empty. "What is this about?" "It's about justice, Captain, and about choices. Mr. Johnson was impressed with your professionalism yesterday. Even in an unjust situation, you maintained your integrity." "I was just doing my job." "Yes, but the question is, whose job were you doing?" Sarah retorted calmly. "Did you follow protocol or perpetuate prejudice?" Vincent remained silent, his jaw clenched. "That's unfair," he muttered. "I followed the rules." "Perhaps, but you knew they were wrong. I can hear it in your voice." A long silence filled the line. Finally, Vincent took a deep breath. "What does Marcus want from me?" "Nothing you don't want to give. Just the truth when the time comes." The call ended. Vincent remained motionless, his gaze fixed on the still canvas. Christine Winters, the arrogant gesture, the humiliation. He knew that this time protocol wouldn't be enough to erase what he had seen. In 2 decades working at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, Captain Vincent Morrison had seen it all. Cases in which the procedure served less to protect and more to justify prejudice. He had always followed the rules, always stayed in line. But that morning, as he reviewed the still images of Marcus Johnson being humiliated, one question gnawed at him. Why? That same evening, at a discreet beachfront restaurant in Miami, Marcus Johnson met an elegant woman with a steady gaze and grey hair styled in a bun. Diane Washington, one of the first black women to lead a tech giant in the United States, awaited him with a serene smile. "I saw the news," she said, settling down at the table. It brought back memories from the past. Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of those words. Some things never change. "Others do change," Diane retorted, studying him. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had anyone to turn to. Today, you have power, influence, and choices. "I have them," Marcus confirmed, "and I intend to use them." Diane swirled the wineglass in her hands, lost in thought. "I taught you patience for a reason. The long-term strategy always wins. I just want to make sure this isn't just personal." "It is personal, yes," he replied firmly, "but it's much bigger than me. Skyward Airlines profits from the discourse of diversity while hiding a culture of discrimination and corruption." "And what do you intend to do? Be judge, jury, and executioner?" Diane asked. Marcus maintained a calm tone. "Not at all. I'm just going to create transparency. After that, the rest will be decided by the public, the regulators, and the market." Diane watched him for a long moment before smiling slightly. "You thought that through carefully." "You taught me well," he replied. "Then remember the most important lesson," she said. "True power lies not in destruction. It lies in transformation." "I know," Marcus replied, "and that's what it's all about. Responsibility." While dinner continued, the entire country watched the chaos unfold. Behind the scenes at Skyward, systems began to fail inexplicably. Reservations disappeared and reappeared. Transactions were duplicated. Flights were cancelled. Social media exploded with the hashtags Chaos Skyward and Our Flying While Black, marking one of the biggest corporate crises of the decade. In the IT war room at the company's headquarters in Boston, the atmosphere was one of despair. "We've fixed everything, but the errors keep multiplying," reported the chief engineer. "It's as if the system is sabotaging itself." "Could it be a hacker attack?" the director asked. "Perhaps, but there are no traces. And the strangest thing is the pattern. The failures only affect the most profitable routes and premium customers. It's too targeted to be a coincidence." A nervous junior analyst raised her voice. "There's something you need to see." The interruptions began right after the incident with Marcus Johnson. The director raised an eyebrow. "Coincidence?" "Maybe not," she hesitated. "Synapse Technologies designed the backbone of our reservation system 3 years ago. What if there's a loophole that no one has noticed?" Silence. The director swallowed hard. "That's impossible," he murmured, but his voice sounded weak, lacking conviction. In a secure location, Colonel Sarah Hayes gathered her team of cybersecurity experts. "Phase 2 activated," he announced. "I want all internal Skyward communications, emails, messages, memos, anything involving discrimination, corruption, or regulatory violations." One of the analysts looked at the screen, surprised. "We found something, Colonel. CEO William Patterson is using a parallel server outside the corporate system." "Can you access it?" "I'm already inside, and the content is revealing." At the airport, Tyler Anderson was finishing his shift when he overheard 2 managers whispering near the counter. "The board needs a scapegoat," one of them said. "They're pressuring William Patterson to punish someone." "And who's going to fall?" "Captain Vincent Morrison. They're saying he should have contained the situation with Johnson, not allowed it to escalate." Tyler felt his stomach churn. "But it was Christine who started all this," protested the other manager. "It doesn't matter. If they blame security, they'll clear the company of racism charges. It's more acceptable to the public." When the men left, Tyler grabbed his cell phone and texted Brandon Cole, They're going to use Morrison as a scapegoat. Confirm that for me. Minutes later, the reply came, confirmed, suspended, announcement coming tomorrow. That night, while the media frantically reported on Skyward's collapse, something extraordinary happened. On all the company's computers, simultaneously, a message appeared on a black screen with white letters. This is just the beginning. The message disappeared seconds later, but the damage was done. The whole country understood. Someone powerful had decided that the era of impunity was over. At Skyward Airlines corporate headquarters in Manhattan, CEO William Patterson paced back and forth with his cell phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care about the cost," he growled. "I want this under control now. Bring in Blackwell." Thomas Blackwell. The name was whispered in corporate circles like a spell and a threat. The man who solved problems, not with official statements, but with fear, influence, and bought silence. 3 hours later, he entered the office without knocking, tailored suit, icy expression, and a reputation as precise as it was ruthless. "This is worse than you described," he said, throwing a tablet on the table. "Stocks are down 12% since the market opened. Social media is a nightmare. And that message on your employees' screens? You've been hacked, William." The executive slumped into his chair. "Can you solve it?" "I can't solve it, but I can neutralize it." The tone was almost clinical. "But I'll need total freedom. Communication, HR, security, everything." "You can have whatever you want," William replied, his anger barely contained. "Just stop the bleeding." Thomas nodded. "We'll start by identifying and eliminating insider threats. Someone is leaking information or collaborating with Johnson. Do you think there are infiltrators?" The cold smile was answer enough. "There always is, especially when the truth starts to become uncomfortable." The following morning, Tyler Anderson arrived for his shift and noticed the tense atmosphere at the airport. New, strict security guards positioned in each corridor. While attempting to pass through the employee entrance, he was intercepted. "Tyler Anderson." "Yes. Why? Please come with us." He was taken to a room without windows. Seated at the table, Thomas Blackwell leafed through a thick file with his name on it. "Mr. Anderson," he said without looking up, "please sit down." Tyler stood up. "What is this about?" From his conversations with Brandon Cole from the IT department and his misplaced interest in the incident with Mr. Marcus Johnson. Tyler turned pale. Thomas looked up, his gaze cold as steel. "Don't insult me by trying to lie. We have your messages, calls, and system access logs." He slammed the folder shut with a snap. "You have two options. Option 1, immediate dismissal, industry blacklisting, and a lawsuit for corporate espionage. Option 2, you tell me everything you know, stay here, and start reporting directly to me." Tyler's silence was answer enough. In another room of the terminal, Captain Vincent Morrison faced a similar situation. On the other side of the table, a woman in a dark blazer with a clinical gaze was leafing through a report. Rebecca Stone, as per the temporary badge. "Your card was used outside of permitted hours to review footage from the Johnson case." "I did my job," Vincent replied firmly. "And she received a call from Colonel Sarah Hayes of Synapse Technologies." Vincent clenched his jaw. "You have filed 3 formal complaints about discriminatory protocols in the last 2 years. That's unrelated." Rebecca leaned forward. "It all makes sense. You're a problem, Captain, but you could be a solution. Just tell us what Johnson's team is planning." Vincent maintained a calm tone. "I don't know of any plan." "Then you are useless to us." She closed the report and left without looking back. Vincent stood motionless, the weight of injustice hanging like lead in the air. Elsewhere in the city, in a modern co-working space in Tribeca, Catherine Ross, Director of Operations at Skyward, sat across from Colonel Sarah Hayes. Neither of them pretended that the encounter was casual. That's highly irregular, Colonel, Catherine said, adjusting her jacket. These are irregular times, Director, Sarah replied calmly. Catherine took a deep breath. I imagine this has something to do with Marcus Johnson. It has to do with Skyward, Sarah corrected. With the rot she's trying to hide. Catherine's face remained neutral, trained by decades of playing the corporate game. I'm the director of this company, Ms. Hayes. Why would I help destroy it? Sarah placed her hands on the table, leaning forward slowly. Because you're better than her. You spent years trying to change Skyward from within. You reported security flaws that disappeared from the reports. You filed complaints about discrimination that were ignored. And guess who blocked all your attempts? William Patterson. Catherine looked away, her silence speaking louder than any confession. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Mr. Johnson is not seeking revenge. He is seeking truth. And that truth will only come to light if people like you stop protecting those who destroy everything they touch. For a moment, the two looked at each other in silence, and it was at that moment that Catherine Ross realized the line between loyalty and complicity had just been crossed. Catherine Ross's eyes widened. How could you know that? We have our sources, Colonel Sarah Hayes interrupted calmly. She leaned forward, her voice firm but serene. The storm is coming, Director. The question is, whose side of history do you want to be on when it happens? Catherine remained silent for long seconds, her gaze lost on the glass table. What exactly are you asking me? Nothing concrete, Sarah replied. Just be prepared. When the evidence about William Patterson comes to light, the public and the board will demand new leadership. Be ready to take charge. Minutes later, as she was leaving the building, Sarah's secure cell phone vibrated. The message from his team was straightforward. Transfers confirmed. Offshore accounts linked to shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Direct signatures of William Patterson. Sarah smiled slightly. The pieces were beginning to fall into place. At that very moment, Marcus Johnson was high up in a Manhattan skyscraper in his office overlooking Central Park. Ahead of him, Diane Washington watched him flipping through reports on an encrypted tablet. It's all interconnected, Marcus said, sliding his fingers across the screen. The same banking group that denied my first loan is the one that finances Skyward. The same advisors who called me an MIT quota are now directors of the company. Diane looked up, impressed. You've been monitoring this for years. I monitor everything, Diane. Information is power. I learned that early on. She returned the tablet with a look that was a mixture of pride and concern. And what about the boy who dreamed of using AI to predict food shortages and save lives? He grew up, Marcus replied quietly, and he learned that good intentions aren't enough. You need influence. Diane sighed. Now you have it. Just don't let power turn you into what you fight against. Marcus smiled slightly. It's not about revenge, it's about responsibility. Minutes later, Sarah's cell phone rang. We have a problem, she informed them. Thomas Blackwell is tracking our internal contacts. Tyler Anderson and Captain Vincent Morrison are under pressure. That was expected, Marcus replied calmly. Activate the countermeasures, protect them both. Already in progress. Meanwhile, in Skyward's main building, Thomas Blackwell was preparing a new report for William Patterson. We've already identified potential leaks, he said, and we've discovered something useful. William leaned forward. House, an old complaint against Marcus Johnson. An allegation of misconduct made by a former employee, resolved discreetly 3 years ago. William smiled cruelly. Perfect. Leak it to the press. I recommend checking first, Blackwell advised. No, William interrupted. I want it on the portals today. Let's see how the tech hero reacts when he's on the defensive. Thomas hesitated but obeyed. A few hours later, an obscure website published, "American billionaire Marcus Johnson is accused of harassment by a former employee." But the story didn't last long. Before the day was over, the website backtracked and published a public apology, attaching proof of payments made by Thomas Blackwell to fabricate the complaint. And at that very moment, the country's main news outlets exploded with headlines. CNN, breaking news. Skyward Airlines CEO investigated for tax evasion and corruption. The New York Times, executives denounce a culture of discrimination and internal manipulation at Skyward. The Wall Street Journal, SEC opens investigation into illegal and offshore transactions linked to Skyward. On the 43rd floor of headquarters in Manhattan, William Patterson watched, astonished, as the screens displayed his face in real time. The phone rang. He was the chairman of the board. "What the hell is going on, William?" "It's Johnson," he stammered. "He's behind this." "Then you solve it, or we'll solve it for you." William barely had time to reply. Your computer flashed and a video call started automatically. Marcus Johnson's calm face appeared on the screen. "Good evening, William." The CEO stood up abruptly. "How did you hack into my secure line?" "There's nothing safe about SkywardNet," Marcus replied calmly. "Not anymore." "What do you want? Money? An apology?" Marcus smiled, but without humor. "I have more money than you'll ever see. And your apology? It wouldn't even make up for the humiliation you allowed." William turned pale. "So what comes next? Justice, responsibility, change." Marcus leaned towards the camera. "You're not fighting me, William. You're fighting the future." The screen went black. William's phone vibrated. A message in white letters flashed on the screen by itself. "We are not cancelling a flight. We are destroying an empire." The elegant glass-walled conference room at Synapse Technologies headquarters in Manhattan was buzzing with silence. The glass panels reflected the sunrise over the East River, partially obscured by mist, a perfect metaphor for the battle that was about to unfold. "The formal letter has been delivered to Skyward Airlines," announced Dr. Elizabeth Carter, Marcus Johnson's principal legal counsel. Her navy blue suit, restrained demeanor, and precise gaze made it clear why she was one of the most feared lawyers in the corporate sector. "The charges include racial discrimination, abusive treatment of passengers, and violation of federal air transport equality laws." Marcus nodded, his fingers interlaced under his chin. And what was their response? "They're asking for 48 hours to formulate an official position," Elizabeth replied with a slight smile. "Grant it," said Marcus. "The letter is just a distraction." On the other side of the room, Colonel Sarah Hayes observed the landscape through the window, standing with the upright and impeccable posture of someone who had never abandoned the military spirit. "Phase 2 is underway, sir," he reported. "We already have a team of 20 specialists, forensic analysts, former investigative journalists, financial experts, and cybersecurity technicians. Everything is ready for the coordinated presentation." Marcus stood up and approached the large interactive screen on the wall, where digital lines and connections formed an intricate web. "The Skyward Empire is fragile," he said, analyzing the charts. "A sandcastle held together by politics, fear, and arrogance." Elizabeth crossed her arms. "The SEC has already opened a confidential investigation based on the information we sent, but they are being cautious. Patterson has powerful friends in Washington." Marcus took a deep breath. "Politics," he murmured, "the last refuge of the corrupt." He looked around at the assembled team. "This isn't about an incident. It's about systems. Systems created to exclude, protect the privileged, and punish those who dare not conform. Christine Winters is not the disease. She is the symptom." "By the way," Sarah interrupted, "we found 12 previous complaints against her, all of which were hushed up by Skyward's HR department." Marcus didn't seem surprised. "And what about young Ashley Parker?" "She's being pressured to keep quiet," Sarah replied. "Thomas Blackwell has made veiled threats about her career." Marcus's jaw clenched. "So make sure she's protected. The same goes for Tyler Anderson and Captain Morrison." As the team dispersed, Marcus's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Diane Washington. "Patterson is mobilizing allies. Senator Robert Marshall called asking about you. Be careful." On the other side of the country, at Skyward's administrative headquarters, an emergency meeting was taking shape. The hallway was buzzing with excited voices. "This is getting out of control," declared Gregory Whitmore, a veteran member of the council. "We need to negotiate with Johnson, apologize, and put an end to this." "Absolutely not," retorted William Patterson, his face red with anger. "That would be admitting weakness. Johnson is an opportunist, nothing more." Catherine Ross watched in silence. She had spent years seeing William prioritize profit above all else, always maintaining a mask of impeccable efficiency. But now, with the company besieged by accusations and headlines, the facade was beginning to crack. "Stocks have fallen 18% in 3 days, warned Chief Financial Officer David Martinez. "Investors are demanding answers." "They will," William replied. "Thomas Blackwell has dealt with worse crises. Johnson may have influence in the technology sector, but I have political power." Catherine finally raised her voice. "And what if the allegations of financial irregularities are true, William?" A dense silence filled the room. William fixed her with a cold, cutting gaze. "These allegations are fabricated, and I'm surprised to hear that from you, Catherine." She didn't look away. "I'm just doing what you always say you value," thinking about all scenarios. The weight of the tension hung in the air, and for the first time, some executives began to realize loyalty to William Patterson was becoming a liability, no longer a shield. The tension at the Skyward Airlines board meeting was broken when William Patterson's assistant rushed into the room, silently handing over a folded note. Upon reading it, the CEO visibly paled. "What was that?" asked Gregory Whitmore suspiciously. William looked up, his voice dry. "Synapse Technologies has just posted a message on social media." He read aloud, "Sometimes giants must fall." Silence fell immediately. "It's already been shared over 50,000 times in less than an hour," William added, his face tense. Meanwhile, Tyler Anderson was in his small Brooklyn apartment, staring at the cold glow of his laptop screen. Since the confrontation with Thomas Blackwell, he had claimed to be ill, trying to buy time. He knew his job was lost. What he didn't know was if it was still secure. The phone vibrated with an unknown number. "Hello?" he asked cautiously. "Tyler Anderson?" a firm female voice replied. "This is Colonel Sarah Hayes from Synapse Technologies. We need to talk." His heart raced. "How did you get my number? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're being watched. There's a black sedan parked in front of your building." Tyler ran to the window. Between the blinds, he saw the dark, motionless car with 2 figures in the front. "What do they want with me? I'm just an intern." "You're a witness," Sarah replied, "and witnesses, for people like Thomas Blackwell, serve 2 purposes, to be controlled or silenced." A shiver ran down Tyler's spine. "Are you saying I'm in danger? I'm saying you have a choice. You can stay silent and hope they forget about you, or you can stand up and help us expose the truth. In any case, we will guarantee your safety." Across town, Captain Vincent Morrison was emptying his desk in the security section of Chicago's O'Hare Airport. After refusing to cooperate with Thomas Blackwell, he was placed on administrative leave, the elegant euphemism for "you're fired." While putting his service awards in a cardboard box, his personal cell phone vibrated with a message. "Your car is waiting in the east parking lot. The black SUV is reliable." Vincent hesitated for a moment. Then he picked up the box and left. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in an unmarked room in a building with no sign. Marcus Johnson stood up to greet him, extending his hand. "Captain Morrison, thank you for coming." Vincent returned the handshake firmly. "It's not like I had much of a choice. My career is over." "Or it has just begun," Marcus replied. "It depends on your point of view." "What do you want from me?" "Just the truth, nothing more." Vincent observed the man in front of him, calm, precise, radiating a quiet authority. "I've seen corruption at Skyward for years," he admitted. "Not just with passengers, but within the company itself. Discrimination, allegations of harassment, selective safety protocols, all swept under the rug." Marcus nodded. "We found the same thing out. But hearing it from someone in your position could change everything." "Are you asking me to be an informant?" "I'm asking to be the man you've already shown yourself to be," Marcus replied. "Someone who does what's right, even when it costs them." Meanwhile, Thomas Blackwell was in his temporary command center, reviewing classified files on Marcus Johnson. One of the assistants approached. "Sir, we found something curious about his past." "House." When he was starting out, his first company was practically stolen by the Sterling Capital Group. The principal partner, Jeffrey Sterling, is now a member of Skyward's board and a personal friend of William Patterson. Blackwell's eyes narrowed. "So this isn't just about the incident at the airport. It's personal." "It seems so, sir." "Find out everything. I want every detail of this story." While Blackwell was digging through files, Colonel Sarah Hayes was conducting a much deeper investigation. In an encrypted digital vault, she gathered devastating evidence against Skyward: falsified maintenance records, manipulated safety reports, secret agreements to cover up harassment, and, most shockingly, documents from private flights linked to international trafficking and money laundering operations. She contacted Marcus via secure video. This goes beyond corporate misconduct. There are cross-referenced financial transactions involving shell accounts and passenger names that do not appear in official records. Marcus remained calm, but his gaze hardened. "Do we have enough evidence?" "Yes, enough to involve the FBI and the SEC." Marcus reflected for a moment. "Proceed with extreme caution. When we act, we will be precise. No innocent person should be caught in the crossfire." Sarah nodded. "Understood." And for the first time since the start of the operation, Marcus Johnson allowed himself a slight sigh. The war was about to leave the digital world and strike directly at the heart of Skyward Airlines. That night, when Christine Winters arrived home, she realized something was wrong. The intense glare of the flashes blinded her for a moment. Paparazzi waited at the far end of the driveway, shouting her name. She lowered her head and quickly went inside, locking the automatic gate behind her. Inside the house, the silence was broken by the incessant ringing of cell phones, hundreds of notifications, social media mentions, voice messages, missed calls. One message in particular caught her attention. A message from a former colleague with a link attached. When he touched the video, the ground seemed to disappear beneath his feet. These were security camera images, compiled over several months, showing his interactions with different passengers. Viewed in isolation, they might seem like trivial incidents, but one after another, they formed a devastating picture. Unequal treatment, aggressive tone of voice, selective rigidity, always targeting non-white passengers. "Who did this?" she whispered, her breath quickening. She tried calling William Patterson's office, but was redirected to Thomas Blackwell. "This is a violation of my privacy," she shouted, agitated. "The company needs to defend me." The answer came coldly. "Defend you?" Blackwell asked disdainfully. "Skyward is dealing with something far bigger than your personal situation. I suggest you remain silent." "But I was just following the rules," Christine insisted. Everyone knows we're instructed to be vigilant with certain passengers in premium cabins. That came from the top." Blackwell smiled cynically. "I advise you not to repeat that, Mrs. Winters. Such an accusation could be interpreted as corporate defamation. The silence that followed was suffocating." Christine finally understood that she was alone. The scapegoat had been chosen. At that same time, in a penthouse in Manhattan, Marcus Johnson was observing the city through panoramic windows. The nightlights reflected on his face as he reviewed old videos, his childhood in Detroit, the humiliations of his youth, the betrayals that shaped the man he had become. The cell phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Colonel Sarah Hayes. "Resources confirmed. The system is ready for complete dismantling." Marcus fixed his gaze on the lights of Central Park and murmured softly, "Let the empire crumble." At 4:13 a.m., the collapse began. Skyward Airlines' global reservation system is completely down. No flights could be confirmed, no check-in completed, no data accessed. The IT teams tried to trigger the backups. All of them failed. It was as if someone knew every vulnerability, every line of code, every internal weakness. At 6 a.m., the airports in Chicago, Washington, and New York were plunged into chaos. The self-service kiosks displayed error messages. The lines for TSA and security stretched for hundreds of meters. Without digital access, agents were forced to use manual forms, as if the system had regressed 20 years overnight. At that same instant, William Patterson was awakened by the frantic ringing of the telephone. On the other end of the line, his chief technology officer sounded panicked. "All of our redundancies have failed. There is no active system, sir." "That's impossible," shouted William. "No, sir," the director replied, almost whispering. "It's as if someone attacked everything at once." At 9 a.m., the technical collapse was just the beginning. A report by the New York Times gained instant prominence. Exclusive, internal Skyward documents reveal corruption, manipulation of audits, and systemic discrimination. Minutes later, the SEC's website received an anonymous report with evidence of financial fraud and internal minutes where executives discussed hiding security flaws. CNN interrupted its programming. "Urgent. Skyward CEO accused of maintaining parallel accounting and falsifying security records." And in Washington, the FBI confirmed the start of a formal investigation. At the company headquarters, William Patterson watched the headlines in silence, surrounded by lawyers and advisors. The chief financial officer, David Martinez, broke his silence. "This isn't a cyber attack, William. It's a coordinated war." "Where is Thomas Blackwell?" demanded William. "Trying to contain the media," David replied. "But it's useless. It's like trying to hold back a tsunami with your bare hands." William's phone rang again. "This is Senator Robert Marshall, sir." The politician's voice sounded firm. "Tune in to MSNBC, now." William obeyed. The TV screen showed Senator Lawrence Brooks, chairman of the Transportation Committee, live. Next to him, seated with a serene expression and a steady gaze, was Colonel Sarah Hayes of Synapse Technologies. She looked directly at the camera and said, "The country deserves to know the truth about what happens above the clouds. Today, the sky belongs to transparency, not to impunity." "These allegations are extremely serious," declared Senator Lawrence Brooks, his face solemn before the cameras. "If proven, they represent one of the greatest breaches of public trust in the history of American aviation. My committee will open a full investigation into Skyward Airlines and its executives." At the company headquarters, William Patterson stood up furious, his blood pulsing in his temples. "That son of a—" he began, but David Martinez interrupted him. "William, the chairman of the board is calling an emergency meeting. They want you in the meeting room in 30 minutes. While he fought for his own corporate survival, the country's screens showed a very different scene. Captain Vincent Morrison, now officially dismissed, was speaking live on CNN. His upright posture and controlled voice conveyed the credibility of someone who had served his entire life with honor. "I witnessed institutionalized discrimination within Skyward," she stated calmly. "It wasn't just tolerated, it was encouraged. Every time I reported irregularities, my reports would disappear into administrative labyrinths. The incident with Mr. Marcus Johnson was just the tip of the iceberg." In another studio, young Tyler Anderson was giving his own interview. The nervousness was evident in his hands, but his voice was firm. "I saw a man treated like a criminal simply for existing in a space that people thought didn't belong to him. And when I tried to talk about it, I was threatened, watched, and humiliated." His sincerity disarmed the audience. Within hours, the hashtag Skyward Accountability exploded on social media, turning Tyler into a symbol of courage and integrity. While the country watched, Christine Winters was officially fired. She was escorted out of the Skyward building under the flashes of photographers, her face tense, almost unrecognizable. "That's unfair," he protested. "I was just following instructions. Everyone knew that certain passengers needed special attention." In the break room, she found Ashley Parker. "It was you," she hissed. "You leaked the videos." Ashley did not back down. "I did what was right, Christine. What you did to Mr. Johnson, and to so many people before him, was always wrong." "You've ruined my life," Christine cried, trembling. "No," Ashley replied calmly. "You did it yourself every time you chose prejudice over dignity." A few minutes later, Christine was being escorted out of the building under the impassive gaze of the press. On the other side of town, Catherine Ross answered a call from Colonel Sarah Hayes. "It's time, Ms. Ross," Sarah said bluntly. "The board is looking for someone who will bring stability. They need a clean leader with an ethical reputation." "And what makes you think they would choose me?" Catherine asked skeptically. "Because we made sure they knew the truth," Sarah replied. His internal reports, his attempts to block corrupt decisions, his security warnings, everything was handed over to the board members. Catherine took a deep breath. "And if I accept, will Marcus Johnson want to talk about the future of Skyward?" "Yes," Sarah assured her. "He believes this company can still be rebuilt with the right people." Meanwhile, in the council chamber, chaos reigned. William Patterson was trying to maintain control. "This is a coordinated attack, a sabotage campaign," he insisted. "Johnson is using his technological influence to destroy Skyward." Gregory Whitmore, the most senior advisor, interrupted him. "The question isn't who's attacking, William. The question is whether what they're saying is true." "That's absurd," shouted William. At that moment, an assistant rushed in with a tablet in his hands. "Sir, you need to see this." On the screen, a personal email from William to Jeffrey Sterling of Sterling Capital Group detailed plans to cover up maintenance failures and intimidate whistleblowers. William's face lost all its color. "This has been tampered with," he shouted. "It's a fake." Gregory stared at him in silence. "If even half of this is authentic, William, you're not just going to face fines. You're going to face the FBI." The council began to deliberate. The vote for his immediate suspension would take place in moments. At Synapse Technologies headquarters, Marcus Johnson met with his own board. The finance director reported, "Skyward's stock plummeted 47% today. They're on the verge of bankruptcy." Marcus remained silent for a moment, watching the red graph pulse on the screen. "No company deserves to fail," he said finally. "Skyward has over 28,000 employees. Most of them aren't corrupt. They're people who just wanted to work." One of the advisors watched him, intrigued. "What are you suggesting, Marcus?" A slight smile appeared on his lips. "Perhaps Skyward Airlines is about to become available at a very attractive price." That night, while FBI agents seized documents from Skyward offices across the country, Marcus held a secret video conference meeting with a select group of minority shareholders. They all had something in common. They had been suspicious of William Patterson long before the crisis. And when Marcus hung up, the city of New York was reflected in the windows of Synapse Technologies, an empire collapsing on one side and another one silently emerging, ready to take its place. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus Johnson began, with the controlled tone and authority of someone who knew everyone in the room was listening attentively, "I believe we have a common interest: to save what can still be saved from Skyward Airlines." One of the investors, visibly cautious, raised his voice. "Given the circumstances, Mr. Johnson, some might see your interest in Skyward as revenge." Marcus smiled slightly. "On the contrary, I see opportunity where others only see ruins. Skyward still has one of the strongest route networks in the country, valuable slots at major airports, and thousands of skilled professionals. What it lost was essential: ethical leadership and modern governance." "Are you talking about an acquisition?" another investor asked. "I'm talking about transformation," Marcus corrected. "At the current share price, Synapse Technologies could have acquired a controlling stake in Skyward with just 30% of the investment required a week ago." One of the shareholders shook his head. "That sounds predatory." "That's called the market," another retorted, "and perhaps that's the only way to prevent total collapse." Marcus allowed the debate to continue for a few seconds before intervening again. "My proposal is simple. Synapse Technologies is offering 50% above the current share price, guaranteeing a fair and immediate acquisition. And what's stopping you from dismantling the company and selling off the most valuable parts?" challenged a veteran investor. Marcus leaned forward. "A legally binding commitment to maintain all jobs for 2 years, in addition to investing in the modernization of the fleet, systems, and internal culture." The silence that followed was dense, broken only by the sound of pens writing down numbers and silent glances exchanged. Meanwhile, in a discreet coffee shop in Washington, Ashley Parker was meeting with Colonel Sarah Hayes. "Ms. Winters has filed a lawsuit for wrongful termination," Sarah informed, sliding a tablet across the table. "He claims he was merely following an implicit company policy." Ashley sighed. "Does this mean I'll have to testify?" "Probably. But she won't be alone," Sarah assured. "We have evidence of 12 previous incidents involving her." "And what about Skyward?" Ashley asked. "There are rumors that the company will not survive." Sarah paused. "That depends on the decisions that are being made now. But I can tell you one thing: Marcus Johnson doesn't want to destroy lives. He wants to change the system that destroys them." Ashley nodded. "That's why I risked my job. Some things are worth more than a paycheck." That same night, William Patterson was escorted out of Skyward Airlines headquarters, officially suspended from all duties, while the FBI executed search warrants at his offices. In the midst of the confusion, he received an unexpected request: a video call from Marcus Johnson. Against the advice of his lawyers, he accepted. "Did you come here to humiliate me?" William asked, his voice bitter. "No," Marcus replied calmly. "I came to offer you a perspective. Today seems like the end, but it's only the beginning of the responsibility." "You destroyed everything I built," William shouted. "No, William, you destroyed it. I only revealed the truth." The former CEO leaned towards the camera. "This is not over." Marcus smiled slightly. "Actually, it is over, but not for the 28,000 employees of Skyward. They deserve better leadership." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that tomorrow at 9 o'clock I will be with the board of shareholders to discuss the complete acquisition of Skyward by Synapse Technologies. A new chapter begins now." And before William could answer, Marcus ended the call. Through the window of his Manhattan office, the city lights reflected off the glass. The cell phone vibrated again, a message from Colonel Sarah Hayes. Warrant served at William Patterson's residence. Operation confirmed. Marcus took a deep breath, gazing at the horizon. Let the empire crumble, he murmured, but this time so that something better can be built in its place. 3 days later, under a heavy sky over LaGuardia Airport, William Patterson's private jet landed quietly. A light rain trickled down the window as he descended, his face pale and his gaze lost. Skyward's shares had plummeted by almost 70%. His personal accounts were frozen by the SEC, and the press treated him as the symbol of a rotten empire. Even so, the board insisted that he try one last conversation with Marcus Johnson, the man who now controlled the company's fate. Not out of loyalty, but because he needed to appear cooperative before the court. The driver maneuvered the car through the streets of Manhattan to the headquarters of Synapse Technologies, a modern tower built of glass and steel whose architecture radiated efficiency and power. No excesses, no gold or marble, just precision, clarity and purpose. Upon arriving, William adjusted his jacket and ordered, without looking at the driver, "Wait here. This won't take long." But deep down he knew the meeting that was about to begin would be the last one in which he would still have a voice. The security guard at the Synapse Technologies reception looked up when William Patterson entered. "Mr. Patterson, please hold on. Someone will assist you shortly." William checked his watch. It was exactly 10 o'clock, the scheduled time for the meeting. He sat down in one of the minimalist armchairs in the lobby, refusing the coffee that was offered to him. At 10:45, he approached the reception again. "Excuse me, I have a meeting with Mr. Marcus Johnson." "Yes, sir. Dr. Johnson has been informed. We ask that you simply wait a moment longer." William forced a smile, but irritation rose like steam beneath his skin. At 11:30 a.m., I was already pacing back and forth. By noon, my patience had run out. "This is unacceptable," he exclaimed, raising his voice. "I'm a CEO, not a salesperson waiting to be served." A cold voice answered behind him. "Ex-CEO, Senior. Patterson." He turned around. Colonel Sarah Hayes watched him with military calm, her gaze sharp as a blade. "Dr. Johnson will see you now," she said, and without waiting for a reply, turned toward the elevators. William followed her quickly. Is this how he conducts business? By deliberately keeping executives waiting? Sarah stared at him briefly, impassive. "Dr. Johnson's time is extremely valuable, Mr. Patterson. Yours is becoming less and less so." The silence in the elevator was suffocating. The doors opened directly onto the executive floor, revealing a spacious, glass-enclosed room overlooking the entire Central Park. Marcus Johnson had his back to the camera, observing the horizon. "Mr. Johnson," William began, forcing a diplomatic tone, "thank you for receiving me. I believe we can still resolve everything in a way that is beneficial to both of us." Marcus turned slowly. "Here, William." Using the first name, without titles, sounded like a sentence. William obeyed, trying to hide his discomfort. "Let's get straight to the point," he began, leaning forward. "You've already made your position public. You've damaged our stock, destroyed our reputation, all because of an unfortunate incident at the airport. Are you satisfied? Can we move on?" Marcus watched him in silence, his expression impenetrable. "Do you really think that's what this is about? Revenge for an unfortunate incident?" William made an impatient gesture. "These things happen. Our employee crossed the line and has already been fired. I'm here personally to apologize. What more do you want?" "Accountability," Marcus replied calmly. "By standards, not exceptions. By systems, not individuals." William scoffed. "Don't give me that social justice talk. We both know this is business. Name your price." Marcus leaned forward and pressed a button on the desk panel. A translucent hologram appeared between them, displaying the corporate structure of Skyward Airlines. The divisions flashed red, each representing a different type of corruption. "Let me show you what I found," Marcus said clinically. 6 years of falsified maintenance records. 12 cases of sexual harassment were covered up with confidentiality agreements. Systematic discrimination in hiring and promotions. And, of course, money laundering through the executive charter subsidiary. William turned pale. "This is absurd. These are internal documents. You hacked us. This is corporate espionage." Marcus looked up, serene. "Interesting. Your concern is how we obtain the evidence, not what it shows." William swallowed hard. "What do you want anyway?" "Skyward Airlines," Marcus replied with surgical simplicity. "Synapse Technologies will acquire a controlling stake for $20 per share." William let out a bitter laugh. "That's less than a third of the company's value last week. It's twice what it's worth today," Marcus replied, "and it will be worth far more than it will be when the charges are formalized by the FBI and the Department of Justice." William glared at him angrily, trying to find an opening. "And if I cooperate with the acquisition, what do I personally gain?" Marcus crossed his hands on the table. "The chance to avoid prison." A heavy silence fell over the room. Marcus continued relentlessly. "I have enough evidence to ensure you spend the next decade behind bars, but if you fully cooperate by signing a complete confession, I can guarantee it will include your collaboration in exposing the irregularities." William looked away. For the first time, he seemed truly defeated. Marcus stood up, ending the meeting with a simple sentence. "I didn't come here to destroy what you built, William. I came to clean up what you contaminated." Sarah opened the door. "The meeting is over." As the former Skyward CEO left the office, the sounds of the city below seemed to echo what Marcus was silently thinking. The empire has fallen, but the future, that's for sure, has just taken off. "You expect me to confess? To destroy myself?" William Patterson's voice echoed through the glass office, a mixture of disbelief and despair. Marcus Johnson watched him calmly. "I just hope you recognize the reality, William. Your empire is already crumbling. The only question is, will you go down with it, or will you leave something standing?" William stood up abruptly, the chair sliding across the marble floor. "This meeting is over. My lawyers will be in touch." "Do whatever you think is best," Marcus replied calmly. As the former CEO headed for the door, Marcus added, "By the way, there's a car waiting for you downstairs. It will take you straight to the FBI headquarters at Federal Plaza. They're very interested in your accounts in tax havens." William froze. He turned slowly. "You wouldn't dare. I've already done that." The elevator doors opened. 2 agents in suits and badges approached. "Mr. William Patterson, FBI, we need you to come with us to provide some clarifications." The sound of handcuffs was the only noise as he was led down the hallway. Minutes later, Colonel Sarah Hayes entered the office through a side door. "It happened exactly as predicted," he said, looking at the encrypted tablet in his hands. "Of course," Marcus replied. "Men like him always believe they're the smartest in the room until the moment they realize the room isn't theirs anymore." Sarah continued, "We have received information that Thomas Blackwell is attempting to mount a counter-offensive. He fabricated false documents to create a scandal about you, something involving alleged financial irregularities by Synapse with minority contractors." Marcus's gaze did not waver. "And you intercepted it?" "Yes," she replied, "and we traced the origin of the files. They were on Blackwell's own laptop. The FBI has already received the evidence of the attempted fraud." Marcus gave a slight nod. "Excellent. And the advice?" "Catherine Ross is gaining support quickly," Sarah said. "With William being questioned, it's likely they'll vote in favor of our proposal within the next 24 hours. Marcus gazed at the horizon through the window. "Then it's done. Skyward will finally fall," he murmured. "But this time, so that something better can be built upon the ruins." Meanwhile, in a small conference room at the Synapse Technologies Innovation Center, Tyler Anderson waited nervously. He had received a mysterious invitation to discuss his professional future. The door opened and Marcus Johnson himself walked in. Tyler jumped up. "Dr. Johnson, I didn't know it would be with you." "You can call me Marcus," he said with a slight smile. "Please, sit down." Tyler obeyed, still confused. "I don't understand. Why am I here?" "Because you had courage when almost no one else did," Marcus replied, sitting down opposite him. "You saw something wrong and refused to pretend you didn't. That's not common." Tyler looked away, embarrassed. "I only did what seemed right." Marcus shook his head. "No, most people stay silent. You don't." He pushed a folder across the table. "Here's a job offer. Inside, a formal letter, an invitation to join the Synapse Technologies Management Training Program with a salary that took Tyler's breath away. "But I don't have the experience for that." "Experience can be learned," Marcus replied. "Character, however, is not, and you already have that." For a moment, Tyler was unable to speak. Marcus continued. "When someone gave me a chance at the beginning of my journey, I vowed I would do the same for others. Now it's your turn." At Skyward Airlines headquarters, Ashley Parker was surprised with a formal summons. When she entered the office of the new Director of Operations, Catherine Ross, she felt her heart race. "Don't worry, Ashley," Catherine said, smiling. "You're not in trouble." "No," Ashley asked hesitantly. "Quite the opposite. I'm here to say thank you." Ashley blinked, confused. "Thank you? Why?" "For your courage in speaking out against what happened to Mr. Johnson and against discriminatory practices within the company. I only did what was right." "And that's exactly why I called you," Catherine replied. "Skyward is going to change. I've been asked to create a new division of ethics and corporate integrity. I want you to be a part of it." Ashley put her hand to her mouth in surprise. "Me? But I'm just a boarding agent. You are someone who recognizes right from wrong and has the courage to act. That's exactly what we need right now." Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, Christine Winters was reviewing her case documents with her lawyer. "Let's argue that you were simply following an unwritten but widely encouraged policy," he explained. "You were used as a scapegoat to protect executives who knew and approved everything." Christine crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on her face. "Then it's time to turn the tables," the lawyer nodded. "And perhaps, finally, expose what has been hidden behind Skyward all these years." As the day drew to a close and the sun set over Manhattan, three people in different locations, Marcus, Ashley, and Tyler, gazed toward the same horizon. A corrupt empire was crumbling, and from its ashes, something new began to be born. More just, more human, more real. There are stories that remind us of something essential. Power and money can build empires, but only character and truth can sustain them. What we saw here is not just the fall of a company, but the collapse of a culture of silence and impunity. Ordinary people, like Ashley and Tyler, showed that courage is still the most transformative force that exists. And perhaps that's the real message. All change begins when someone decides not to remain silent. When someone chooses to do what is right, even alone, because in the end, justice is not revenge. It's balance, it's reconstruction, it's a new beginning. Please comment on which city or country you are watching from. Your opinion matters. Every story gains strength when it is shared. If this story made you think, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thus, you continue to be part of a space where truth, dignity, and courage never cease to have a voice.